how can the government is it possible for the government to be effective if we get the taxing right and the policies are still not wrong, or once we get taxes and the collection and the process and the tax subsector reformed, would that affect a policy in any way? Fiscal policy, that is.
That's a great question. And I think at first you think of what we call low-hanging fruits. And even though technology requires a lot of investment and some of the things I've mentioned require investment, I think we also need to look at the big picture in terms of not so low-hanging fruits in terms of policy and whatnot. For instance, it's been the norm for Nigeria to put preference in terms of the manufacturing industry, manufacturing sector over other sectors, both from taxing, from regulation, from exchange control and whatnot. And on the top of it, that seems to make sense, right? But if you think of Nigeria, what do you need to have a great manufacturing industry, booming manufacturing industry? You need infrastructure, you need power, you need roads, you need all those things, which we don't really have in terms of the highest quality. So should we start to think, what's our competitive advantage as a nation? To me, that is our people, our population. And it's a young population. So that's our competitive advantage. So now what can we put in place in terms of policy and tax that's going to take advantage of that competitive that we have? And I would say we need to start looking at not just manufacturers and whatnot and expand it and look more like services and look to be the service hub of Africa, so to speak, not just for indigenous companies here, but also for companies coming abroad. And they can set up, we have the people, educated people, in all the universities, and then maybe that fosters more education. They know there's jobs waiting for them, and put, incentives, tax incentives for that. Now we focus mostly on manufacturing. We started now focusing on technology, but I think the next step is to make it even broader and say this is just service industry, and there might be conditions there. You need to hire a certain amount of people or whatnot. So that's one thing. The other thing I think is a lot more radical, but I think would help in terms of the tax base. So the way we do taxes, this is probably going to be a lot harder to do. So in terms of administration of taxes, we'll look at from the federal and state. Federal take over, they're responsible for your corporate income taxes, for your VAT, for stamp duty and whatnot. And then states, they're responsible for personal income tax, right? Which is based on where you stay.
Yeah.
This is not usually the case in other jurisdictions. What you find is a reverse, something different. What you have is the federal government is in charge of all income tax. So both corporate income tax and payroll income tax, right? And then the states, they are responsible for sales tax, which is the equivalent to VAT. Now, why is that important? It's really important that for a state like Lagos State, for instance, that has a lot of commerce going on, right? That has a lot of people living there. They really get enough, I would think, from taxes from that. So they don't need to go after everyone. There's no real incentive to go after all the other individuals that may be living here making a lot of money. And the same for the government, federal government, because even if they do, remember what I said about the tax base, that money is not going to come to the federal, it's going to go to the state, right? In terms of individuals. But if you change it around, now you have the resources, the might to ensure you put all these things in place that make sure everyone is paying their first taxes, both companies and individuals. So that's the federal. And then the state can focus on commerce. And so each state has to focus on commerce to build their state's commerce and business transactions and get sales tax from that, i.e. VAT. That puts an incentive on each state to make sure its state is developing and businesses are coming to their state, generating revenue in terms of business and commerce. So that's something we need to maybe want to think about in terms of policy and also tax administration going together. So just two key examples.